What's up, everyone? The College Football Playoff Rankings first edition come out today. Before that, I wanted to show you the real top 25, my top 25 teams, which are more accurate than the AP pool and any other ranking video that I've seen on YouTube. I've seen somewhere they don't put South Carolina in the top 25. You'll see that I have them there. I see some that have Texas outside the top 10. I'm just thinking, like, do these guys watch the same college football I am? Because these rankings, while being very strength of schedule based, do factor in head-to-head and just the eye test. How good are these teams? I could care less if they lost to some team in week 1 if they've been playing very good ever since. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start with number 25, Vanderbilt. They're overrated in my opinion. Before making this video, I was like, I'm going to make this video just so I can say Vanderbilt's not a top 25 team. But when I actually go through it, I don't think I can name 25 teams better than Vanderbilt. Maybe if we see Arkansas or Louisville get better, yes, I have Louisville outside my top 25. If we can see them have like a convincing win for once, not just beating Clemson one time, then yeah, maybe I can put Vanderbilt and leave them outside the top 25. But for right now, Vanderbilt 6-3. I still think they're a little overrated. Pavia's 25. And that just goes to show, like, people are saying, oh, he should be in the NFL drafts. And, like, they jump to all these crazy statements they make. But moving on, Army is 24. To be undefeated this late into the season after 10 weeks of football, 8 games, you have to rank Army. And they did it with their quarterback being injured, too. It's impressive what Army's been able to do. 23, I have Boise State. UNLV is in my full rankings, which are in the description. They did not make the top 25. I'm only covering the top 25 teams in this video. But Boise State beat them, and they took care of business this past weekend, beating San Diego. And I think they can win out and have a strong chance at making the college football playoff. 22 is Colorado. They have an improved line of scrimmage game. Their rushing game has been good. That's one of the things from last year. It was like, all they can do is pass. But they can actually rush pretty well this season. They have been doing it. Their defense has improved. No, they don't get trampled on by every team they play. And I actually think Colorado is pretty serious this year. 21 is the team that beats them, Kansas State. Kansas State is, of course, coming off a loss, but I'm not going to knock them down too far because it was raining that game. It had an hour weather delay, and the rain picked up very hard in the second half when they began to choke, as Kansas State is a passing team. Even though you may not see it, they have a lot of yards, but they do get a lot of yards through their tight end in those short yard situations, and Kansas State couldn't really do that in the rain. I'm not going to take them down and punish them too far. At number 20 is Pittsburgh, who lost for the first time this year. If you're looking at the ratings, which I have, it's on a scale from 0 to 100 pretty much. I have this rating system in the corner. If you're looking at that, then you would have seen that it took a big jump from Kansas State to Pittsburgh, because I do think there's a significant gap there. Pittsburgh just lost for the first time this year, but for them to be undefeated as long as they were, it's pretty impressive to me. Number 19 is Clemson. Just a week ago, Cade Klubnik was in Heisman race talk. I don't think he was ever that good. I can admit, though, 2 seasons ago when DJ Uiagalelei was still on the team, I was saying they shouldn't have started Cade Klubnik. I was wrong there. Yeah, Cade Klubnik is good, but he's not Heisman good, if you know what I'm saying. And it's a bad loss to Louisville, but I'm not going to give up on Clemson. I'm not going to be like all these guys I see in comments saying Clemson should use the transfer portal. Get over that. Clemson's a good football team. At 18 is a team who gave Pittsburgh their first loss, SMU. They've been good for a while now. They're on a pretty good win streak right now, and they're for real. I never really liked their air raid offense, but since coming to the ACC, I feel like they changed it up a bit, and they're a legitimate team. I was not expecting SMU to be this good. Next up is Missouri, a team who I've always thought was overrated. I've always thought Brady Cook was overrated, Luther Burden's overrated, and the defense is very bad, right? But they've been winning games. They're 6-2 now, and I could see them probably being a top 15 team next week if they win. So Missouri has actually been playing good as of late, and they're not a bad team. There's going to be a lot of SEC teams still to come, and that's not SEC bias. These teams are good just because they beat each other up. Doesn't mean they're bad. I mean, look at the Pac-12. That's like saying that they never had a top 10 team or a top 5 team just because they never had a team make the playoffs for like 10 years. No, they just play each other. You can't have that many teams be convincingly good if it's a super conference, which is what the SEC is. So at 16, Iowa State, a team that just got their first loss of the year to Texas Tech. Texas Tech is another team that's kind of on the door knocking into these top 25 rankings. But that loss to TCU was pretty bad. But back to Iowa State, they've been playing good. I love Jaden Higgins. I love TJ Tempo in the defense. Iowa State is a team that they can get over this loss and they could still make the playoffs. Number 15, South Carolina, 5-3. This is where they were in my rankings, 15. But look at their 3 losses. Look at who they are too. They're not bad losses. LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss are all great teams. Nothing to be ashamed of for South Carolina. They've been competitive in all games besides the one against Ole Miss. And they're a top 15 team talent-wise. Sellers, say what you want about him, but the defense has been dominant. They've been good. They're an SEC team. They're not the doormat of the SEC. They're not a bottom-tier SEC team like Oklahoma or Vanderbilt, historically, is what I'm saying. They're actually good this year. 14, Notre Dame, who has a kicker who transferred from South Carolina, I believe. They, on a 7-game win streak, haven't really beaten anyone. Navy was a good team. I think they're still good. And that's an impressive win for Notre Dame. They were very dominant that game. They blew them out like crazy. But before I just can't put them in higher because all the teams above them are better than Notre Dame. I feel like if from 1 to 13, if any of these teams were to play Notre Dame, they will win. The teams that I'm not too sure about, they have a better resume, if you know what I mean. For example, number 13, Indiana. They're undefeated. They've been blowing every team out. They blew out Michigan State by 37. Rourke is back, and Indiana is just good as ever. 12 is BYU. They're also undefeated, coming off of bye weeks. Interesting to see who they're going to play in the Big 12 championship because BYU is likely going to be the team coming out of the Big 12. They have a real shot making the college football playoff. Do I think they're that good? Yeah, they haven't struggled this year. They've had 1 or 2 close games, but that's it. And they were pretty much in control most of those games too. Number 11 is Ole Miss. I thought they were over at the beginning of the year, but now after they're 7-2 now, I'm thinking Ole Miss is pretty legit. They just scored 63 points, so they're not struggling at all right now. They have a big game this weekend. Number 10, LSU has a big game against Alabama. LSU 6-2, and I was a little concerned about Nussmeier at the beginning of the year. He was one of the better backup quarterbacks last season, one of the more promising backup quarterbacks. The DBs and pass rush is good. I don't think there's that many concerns about LSU. They're a good SEC team, same as number 9 Texas A&M, a good SEC team. Sure, they just lost to South Carolina, but playing in South Carolina is always going to be hard. And they have a quarterback now. That's something that people were always saying about Texas A&M. They didn't have a quarterback, but they have a bad offensive line. That's about it. Texas A&M's an otherwise great team, elite team. Number 8 is Alabama, another team who I think is elite this season, is mirroring the 2007 season that they had, which may be good, may be bad. It's bad for Alabama standards. Really good. Most teams would like to have a season like Alabama. So even in Alabama down year, they're still a top 10 team. Jalen Milroe is still a Heisman candidate, even though I think he shouldn't be. But he's got Heisman talent. He's not really having that good of a year, in my opinion. Number 7 is the team who beat Alabama, Tennessee. That game was sloppy. Tennessee should not have won that game. Somehow they found a way to win, just like Kentucky. It was close for a while. They found a way to win that game as well. They've beaten Missouri too, and Tennessee's they just win. They only have one loss, which was to Arkansas, I believe. But there's my number 7 team. They've been winning. Same as number 6, Miami. Almost everyone has them as a top 4 team. I don't believe in their defense to hold any real offense because they haven't played anyone good. And that's one of the things people will say, as long as they can outscore the other team. Put them against Alabama, for example. Put them against Tennessee. Are you so sure? But I have to put Miami at this side because they're undefeated. And to last that long, not losing a single game, you have to reward that. Number 5 is Penn State. They lost this weekend to Ohio State. It was close. They could have won the game, but they ended up losing. So I have them at number 5. The whole year I was thinking like, okay, they haven't played anyone. Once they play Ohio State, they're going to lose. I'm not going to overreact to it, okay? Their tight end is amazing. He plays all over the field. He does crazy things. He's going to be a first top 10 draft pick whenever he gets drafted. And then the defense, they got the pick 6 against Ohio State to start the game, but they were good for the most part. It's just the offense is a little bit lacking. But I mean, I think that's just Ohio State, being clutch. They came to play. And Ohio State, speaking of them, they're number 4. Number 4 isn't that low for Ohio State, even though their only loss is to Oregon, who is a consistent number 1 team right now. I think Ohio State still has some inconsistencies. I mean, they struggled playing Nebraska at home, even though they pulled away in the end. Soria is good, but with all the injuries to their offensive line, I can't have that much trust in Ohio State to be that good of a team, especially with Bill Howard, how he plays. He's been kind of inconsistent as well with interceptions, but I mean, they're going to keep trying. I love the effort Ohio State has. They bounce back from mistakes. They don't lose any confidence. That's one thing about them and Ryan Day's coaching. So they have a lot of talent. They made more mistakes than some of these teams in the top 3, and that's why I have to put them at number 4. I'm not going to put them in the top 3. I'm not going to put them over Texas, who's my number 3 team. Yeah, they got embarrassed by Georgia at home, but Texas is still one of the most complete teams. Best defense in the nation. Pretty much everyone can agree on that. Good quarterback, good offense. They just had one bad game against Georgia, and everyone overreacts saying it's over for them. It's not. Quinn Ewers is good. They have the experience. They were literally in the college football playoff last year. I wouldn't be worried about Texas at all. They're contenders. Number 2 is Georgia. They could be number 1, but I have them in number 2 just out of respect for Oregon and how great of a season they've had. But Georgia, they've been perfect. Outside that one Alabama game, the first half of the Alabama game, they haven't really been that bad. Sure, they've had a close encounter with Kentucky, was it? But if I had to bet money on any team to get a win, it's going to be Georgia. They have the most talent, the most draft-ready players, the most pro day players. Georgia has talent all over the field, every position. They're complete. Really, sure, they're not as deep as last year. That's one thing that I will give Texas the nod over Georgia. Texas has more depth. Georgia still has more talent, if you know what I'm saying. And number 1 is Oregon. They're having the best season out of any team in college football, undeniably. Sure, they haven't played that many good teams outside of Ohio State, but they played Ohio State. That's what matters. They got the win. They were clutch. Dylan Gabriel is one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time. His season is kind of reminding me of Mac Jones when he was in the Heisman consideration. If you remember those days where it's like they're kind of a game manager. You don't see them going to the NFL and being like that good of a quarterback, right? But against college players, they're playing good, and that's what matters. These are college football playoff rankings. These are not NFL draft rankings. So the Oregon Ducks are number 1. They've been good. They were a little shaky at the beginning of the year, but now everyone's like, yeah, we're finally seeing that Oregon is good. Their offense is going. Their defense is clicking. They have momentum. They're full steam ahead. So these are my top 25 rankings. Full list is going to be shown on the screen right now. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.